The following episode was recorded at Banff Session 2026, which is celebrating 70 years of architects and interior designers coming together to share ideas, culture, strategy, and this year's theme was origin stories. In this episode, I'm joined by world-renowned architect Douglas Cardinal. Born in 1934 in Calgary, he began his architecture studies at the University of British Columbia in 1953 and completed the Bachelor of Architecture at the University of Texas in 1963. He's now based out of Ottawa. At the age of 92, his life and career are full of accomplishments, far too many to list, but just to name a few. He is an officer of the Order of Canada, recipient of the Gold Medal of Royal Architecture Institute of Canada, and the Governor-General's Award for Visual and Media Arts. Honored by the International Association of Architects as a World Master of Contemporary Architecture, and in 2018, he led Unseated, Voices of the Land, Canada's Pavilion at the Venice Architecture Biennale. When I signed up for this podcast, I didn't know that I was going to have an opportunity to talk to internationally well-known, renowned architects. Douglas Cardinal was one of them. It was my highlights of my career to be able to do something like this. Throughout the conference, Douglas's impact was shown amongst so many people, different age groups, highly accomplished architects that were coming up to him to take a photo with him. He's made a huge impact in the architecture community globally, not just locally, not just Canadian, but internationally. So it was my pleasure to speak with Douglas Cardinal for as long as I had. And at the age of 92, he had amazing stories to share, certainly one of the highlights of my career. You need no introduction, of course, when it comes to this, but I just wanted to kind of get back to some of your origins about getting started in this industry, and maybe you want to give me a bit of background about yourself.
I was born in Calgary, and as a young child, I grew up in the Porcupine Hills in southern Alberta. My father was from southern Alberta. He was a lawman, a fur, fish, and game warden, because the government at the time wanted to preserve wildlife as much as possible. The settlers, of course, wanted to farm the land because it was rich, and that's why they came to Alberta. So we had many different cultures that came to Alberta from all over the world, really. So Alberta had many different people of different nationalities, which were homesteaders. Indeed, my mother was, her parents were from Germany. They had left Germany because they were very strong Catholics in a Lutheran society, and so they felt that they could come to Canada and be free to follow their ways, their religion, and they would have the freedom to be who they were and have to work hard, of course, because they had a brick land. They had a homestead which was forested, and so they had to cut the trees and pull all the roots out and plow the land so that they could grow different grains, which they could market, grasslands to raise cattle for milking cows. And so it was a tremendous amount of work.
Incredible amount of work. I mean, it sounded like, from what I've read as well, that your mother and your father, but especially your mother, had a big influence on you in architecture, and she knew before anybody else that you were going to be an architect.
Yes, my mother, because my father would build all the houses. Our first house was a log house in the Porcupine Hills. where I grew up in. And I was always with my father, watching him and seeing how he did things. And he was always building everything by hand, even the furniture,
Amazing. Yes. Yeah.
tables and chairs and everything. He would build everything. He was a very strong guy. He used to, he worked for the railroads and he would drive spikes.
So yeah, hammering the
hammering
spikes
the
in.
spikes in
Yeah.
to build a railroad. And the Waterton Lakes Hotel, he was one of the contractors.
Oh, interesting. Very good. The Prince of Wales Hotel.
The Prince of Wales Hotel, yeah.
Yeah. So that was an amazing project that would have been obviously quite iconic in its place and setting at the time, and such a difficult thing to construct in the middle of Waterton National Park as well.
Yeah, because his father was first white guy in the area, and he was a Southerner. His name was William Samuel Lee. You'll find in the history, he was the first white settler in the Crow's Nest Pass. And he had a deal with the government. He fought in the Civil War against Lincoln. And Lincoln's troops were shooting all the cattle of the South. They didn't want the South to rise again. And Lincoln didn't want any Southerner to be part of the government. And so he had his own rules. That is, he drove 10,000 head of cattle from Texas and Mexico along the Rocky Mountains, which were not states at the time. They were all ranches. A lot of the ranchers supported the South because they didn't want states. They wanted to remain as ranchers. So they support his cattle drive all the way first to Salt Lake City, where he gave some of the cattle to the Mormons so they could survive. Some of the Mormons joined him as cowboys.
In Utah.
Yeah, from Utah.
Yeah.
And they drove the cattle further to Montana. And some of the Sioux joined them to drive the cattle to southern Alberta.
It sounds like there's a lot of rich history there. And I know that you must have drawn a lot of inspiration from the natural environment, the beauty of Mother Nature, which I heard you talk a little bit about this last night at dinner. But your architecture and some of the early inspiration that you're talking about in terms of the Rocky Mountains and growing up a bit more in Red Deer as well. How did that influence some of the design that you've done that's lasting out there now, that's become iconic? You were involved with the head smashed in buffalo jump as well, is that correct?
Yeah. Settlers had killed all the buffalo, primarily putting the railroad through. The buffalo were quite huge, and they could derail a train if they were hit. And what happened was my grandmother was very concerned because her people were starving to death because they totally relied on the buffalo.
Of course.
And so she was the clan mother for the warrior clan called the Good Strikers. And so she decided that she had to go hunting for a settler with lots of cattle so that she could feed her clan and her people.
Your grandmother went out hunting.
She went out hunting and she seduced my grandfather and married him and adopted him into the tribe. And so she had thousands of head of cattle. So that was how he became a settler that was part of the Blackfoot tribe, the Kenai tribe, the Blood tribe. We're the most fearsome tribe on the prairies.
I love hearing about the history. You're a source of knowledge.
That's my background.
Yeah.
So My father taught me a lot about what he learned from my grandmother about wildlife and about nature. That's why they made him a lawman to protect nature. Even though the buffalo were all gone, Alberta was a good place for a lot of the American hunters would come up for trophies. And sometimes they would just leave the body to rot,
Yeah, it's terrible.
And so the government at the time said, we've got to police. We killed all the buffalo. We can't kill all the wildlife or else we'll lose all of the wonderful assets we have
Of course, the natural resources.
in the natural resources. We're chopping down the trees. We're killing all the wildlife. We're going to destroy all the assets that we have as Albertans. That's why they made my father into a lawman.
The warden, right?
And because of game warden.
Yeah.
So he could protect the rest of nature and the rest of our natural resources of Alberta. That he taught me all about the importance of wildlife, the importance of nature, the importance of every living object and every tree. And he knew all these things from my grandmother because she was a very traditional Blackfoot woman.
And sounded to at dinner, you really spoke about the deep appreciation for women.
Yeah, at the time, women had very strong roles. I mean, and she was the clan mother
Yeah.
of the warrior clan. Women were admired by their strength and their tenacity, and also women were treated as sacred because they brought life into the world. They represented the connection with water because we are actually created by the two cells, male and female, in a bag of water
Yes.
in the womb of a
Yeah.
woman's womb.
Yeah.
And so the women are the water carriers of life, and the land, the water on the land like we have here with the rivers and just a river outside the door here.
When you were speaking last night about that in particular, my wife was beside me and my partner, and we've been together for 20 years. And I felt a tingle, my head and everything tingled with a warm sensation when you were giving the blessing over dinner. And I was so thankful to share it with her. And we've got 3 kids as well. And so I really appreciate that. And also just your deep appreciation, and as you explained it, it was a beautiful blessing. So I really want to thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's so important that we appreciate the women and honor the women.
When you get into later in your career, when you start working into architecture, what was one of the first projects that you've done that really stood out to you, where you felt that you've went from learning to doing, where you became an individual specifically who's starting to really, we'll say, hone their own skills in their craft? Is there something that sticks out in your mind in terms of our project? This episode is supported by High Signs. I know not everybody likes commercials, but I do want to make a note that as the managing director of High Signs, we're here to help support architects and interior designers. And I've been fortunate to work on projects in Reykjavik, Iceland, Hawaii, Montana, Banff, Jasper, Calgary, Edmonton, and beyond. We like to focus on placemaking, wayfinding, and architectural signage. Our design team help with sign planning, content schedules, mapping, engineering, fabrication, and installation. Whether it's a public art installation or campus wayfinding, we're here to help. High Signs. Let's build something great together.
My first major project was a Catholic church in Red Deer. I felt that was, for me, an opportunity to give back because I was considered Catholic.
So you had some deep roots in that project from some of your family
Yeah,
history.
and so what happened was they wanted me to be brought up Catholic. Well, the priest told them that my mother had married a savage. They said that my mother would go to hell because she married a savage.
It's a different time, obviously, that you were, living with back then.
Yeah, and so what they said that I had to be brought up a Catholic. And so they decided when my father left southern Alberta and got transferred to Red Deer, Alberta, to look after wildlife in central Alberta. The priest convinced my mother she had to make me into a Catholic. So I was sent to a residential school, a convent,
Yeah.
to I was moved from my home, my loving parents, my mother and father, who were very loving and caring. And
Of course, yeah. You've had this sort of ripped away from you at the time.
yeah, I was taken away from my parents and put in a convent, along with my two younger brothers. And at the time, because we were considered savages that need to be saved from hell, it was very difficult for me and my brothers.
When you spoke about this before, you talk about it being obviously a very difficult time, but also a time that shaped you fundamentally going forward. There's a talk that you had presented about having no evil in the world or no bad, except there might be crooked bad and needs to be straightened out sometimes. And I was wondering, how do you feel about that? And that there is no evil, but only being
Yeah,
able to
there is
straighten it
no
out.
bad. The Creator created no bad as far as my elders are concerned. And my elders that I listened to a lot because I found there was a way of living in harmony with oneself and with nature by listening to my native elders. I found they were a real treasure in my life. Native elders had so much knowledge to give to me, and one of the important things to them was you can't judge people. The Creator will not even judge you because we're just human beings. We don't have the knowledge and wisdom of the Great Spirit, We're pretty ignorant people, but we do have the opportunity to learn while we're on this journey of life on this planet. Learn the beauty that the Creator has given to all of us. We can gain wisdom through our senses in our brain, and we can learn more than just being an animal like a brain. All animals are hardwired to be who they are, but human beings are wired to be creative. And so we can create whoever we want to be and whatever we want to be.
Yeah.
We have that gift of creativity, and it's how we use it is important. Elders said the Creator wants us to use it for good, that the Creator only created good, and that we have to surround ourselves by good and make good judgments in our lives. So,
I feel like you've been a strong ambassador of that and that philosophy and that understanding and belief. It's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of yourself, from your shared stories, and it's a tremendous amount of adversity that you would have went through very early on in your life, and I'll do my best to continue to learn.
yeah, well, it's so important because I found in the convent, yes, it was difficult. I learned music, which was food for the soul,
Yes.
and so I learned how to play music, and I would play for hours and hours, and I loved music, and I took a whole Toronto Conservatory course in music.
Was there a certain style of music that you loved?
Pardon?
Was there a certain style of music that you loved?
Well, all classical music,
And did you
because
play
that's all
instruments?
at the piano.
Piano?
So I learned the music from the music teacher, Sister Marie, who taught me, and I loved music, and I would play for hours. And then also I learned about the arts, the beautiful manuscripts that I would go through, the beautiful, absolutely books in the convent. Had a huge library, and also the beauty of the churches they created, particularly in Europe, the cathedrals.
Oh, they're incredible, built over decades and if not, centuries
Yeah,
of craftsmanship and art, and the architecture is just amazing.
yeah. So when I started going through all these marvelous things that, like the work of Michelangelo, the work of all these great artists, and the churches they built, and the cathedrals, and the stained glass, and the paintings, the artwork. I've I thought, now music is an art form, but I also want to learn how to draw and how to create art. And so I got into drawing and art. But then in reading about the great artists, they felt the highest form of art was architecture. It was the mother of the arts because not only did you see the art in 2D, but in architecture you saw the art in 3D, and really in the fourth dimension if you add music to it. And that's why they created these amazing organs, make the organs in the church be almost go to the fourth dimension of
Yeah,
spirituality.
transcend into the fourth dimension. I've visited some amazing cathedrals over my travels in Scotland and even Montreal. But when you're in Europe and you see these things, I remember just looking up, and it's awe-inspiring. You feel like you're in a completely different place, and you think about how many people it took to craft all this. And I feel like, you speak about some amazing artists like Michelangelo, and, walking through this conference and seeing the people that admire you, you too are one of those legendary architects that people look up to, and you've transformed people's lives through the inspiration of the work of your life's passion. How do you feel about that, about, your life's work and what it will do to stand the test of time, and the influence that it's made on so many other young aspiring architects?
Well, I was just doing my job because my job was to bring people's dreams into reality. It was like Father Merckx made the church at Red Deer happen, and Dr. Henry Anderson made the Grand Prairie College happen. Pierre Elliott Trudeau made the National Museum happen, and David Rockefeller made the one in Washington happen. So it was these patrons who put their money and their dreams out there. And then my job was to bring their dreams into reality. It was their dreams, it was their patronage that made it happen. I was just doing my job by serving them.
Well, it was the serving the highest art form, which you mentioned, architecture, which you've served your entire life, which is absolutely amazing.
Well, I had absolutely amazing patrons. I mean, look who I had as patrons.
Well, it takes so many people for everything to come together, but I feel like you just had this brilliant creativity in your mind to help that come to life.
Yeah, without the popes, there would be no St. Peter's in Rome, and without these great patrons of the arts throughout history, I think that we forget that it's not about us as architects. It's the people we serve that are important. And I feel that there are times where I feel too self-important. And that's why I have to go back to my spiritual roots and go back to the lodge and sit on the land and in the ceremonies and remind myself I have to be humble because I've been given so much opportunity.
It feels like so inspiring and warm for you to say that. And I think, how do we preserve that for architecture and for anyone going forward? What advice would you have for the younger generation coming up?
Well, sometimes we think that it's all about us as architects and all about us as artists because particularly if the people really appreciate our art, if I get applause, I have to be reminded that it's my patrons and my elders and everybody who contribute to my life that I have to honor and respect. I wear that hat to remind me of one of my patrons in Mexico that I worked for.
Tell me about the hat a little bit.
Oh, well, I was asked to do a building in Mexico, a church. People built it themselves out of their hard work themselves,
Of course.
their sweat and their tears, and built it themselves out of loving and caring for our Creator. And they did it for their children and for their families and for their women. And at the opening, I was asked to come in and they blessed the church, and I was asked to be part of the ceremonies where I gave the keys that I had to the people. But they gave me that hat to remind me when I wear it that I was shielded by the sun, by the prayers of the people in the church.
It's a form of protection too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that.
yeah. To protect my head, who helped put it together.
I love that you appreciate it very much. Douglas, I hear that you're working on a memoir.
Yes, one of my clients said he wanted to make sure that people write a book about me. So
How is your memoir coming along?
it's taken a long time.
There's a long life and a tremendous amount of accomplishments and projects to document, so no doubt.
I lived a long time.
92 years old?
Yeah, to 92 years old.
92 years old, and you've had such a tremendous career, and we're always in awe about the work that you've done, and I look forward to getting your memoir because I'd love to read through it more and learn more about you and the culture. I wanted to thank you today for coming on the podcast, and it's been such a pleasure to just ask a few questions and only scrape the surface about some of your origin story. And, just thank you very much for blessing us with your time today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. Thank you.